I'm here to listen. Why am I walking on this way?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Muse's AT Podcast, where you can relive my epic journey with me. This is Muse, and what follows is my Appalachian Trail story. And I am sitting here with somebody who was absolutely pivotal to my Appalachian Trail story, Wayfinder. Now, Wayfinder, you've been listening to the podcast. How does my audience know you?
So, as of this point, only 2 episodes are live, but I am out there as Haley, Muse's daughter, but also known as Wayfinder.
I'll probably call you Haley for the rest of the episode because that's how the audience knows you. But tell me a little bit about the trail name Wayfinder.
Yeah, so it was a little bit of an interesting story with multiple sides. I remember our first day actually hiking was climbing Katahdin and coming back down. You had said something to me like, you're really good at wayfinding, or like just finding the paths in certain rocks and stones and the ones that are steadier and the little walkways with all those rocks and roots up in Maine. And that kind of stuck with me. I don't remember if I asked you then or later on in our hike at some point, like, did you actually mean it when you said that? But I asked you that at one point.
I remember you asking me that, yeah.
Yeah. And then if that was then or if it was later, from that first comment, I kind of latched on to that identity a little bit and kind of like that drove me through some of the harder parts. So it wasn't necessarily a trail name at that point, but that was when the seed was first planted. It became cemented on actually what was the last day, so kind of full circle. I think I just decided that I was actually leaving the trail. We were out there hiking it ended up being like 3 miles or something in the rain, southbound from the hostel in Munson. And that was, at first, it was a miserable hike, and I was not feeling it, and I kept slipping in these huge puddles. And I was so frustrated. And I remember the mood shifted when I made the decision. And then after that, it was a much lighter conversation. And we hiked back to the hostel. But in that period of lighter conversation, there was that's when I asked you, but there was well, what if this is my trail name? Like, I'm finding my way, whether it's out here or whether it's actually not on the trail. And that's when it happened. I think one of the quotes in one of my trail journals that I put at the very top, it was before this was even my trail name, but it was, you don't always have to know the way to know that you'll find it eventually. So I think that kind of ties it all together too, and that's kind of cool.
Nice. Yeah, I remember that last day that you were on trail, 3 miles between the 2 ways into the town of Munson, basically. I do remember it was raining lightly on us. It had just rained a ton, right? So there were puddles all over the place. But the funny thing about it, and I'm just going to let the audience know, obviously you know this, the funny thing about it is that you absolutely love the rain.
Yeah.
And I remember even asking you on that day because, okay, you slipped in a puddle, and I remember this moment very clearly. You slipped in a puddle, and then you got up from that puddle, and you just said, I just don't want to, right? I just don't want to do this. You were going to kind of soldier on at least a Caratunk because that's what Poet had talked you into, right? You were going to do that, but you're just like, I know that I just don't want to. And I'm like, if you know that you don't want to, because you'd been struggling with that for a while. If you know that you don't want to, then you know, right? And then it might have been 20 minutes later, you're enjoying the rain like you normally did and everything. And I'm like, are you sure you don't want to? I remember that very clearly because it's like, this is a lot of hikers are out here dreading the rain and you're loving the rain. I'm like, you would be the perfect thru hiker. And I don't think you ever doubted that anyway. It's not, we'll get into that in this interview, of course, but I don't think the actual challenges of the trail had anything to do with why you got off trail. Am I right? Just kind of high level there?
Yeah, I think that is true.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do think the trail name where I didn't even realize it at the time. Like it was a literal, oh, I pride myself on being the wayfinder. Like I was always in front when we were hiking. But then I do think it has a nice symbolism to it as well because even on the other side, it's very fitting looking back as well because it was really like finding my own way. And even now, like even in like my job now, it's helping other people find their way in a different sort of way, but I'm saying way a lot. But
Sure,
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Well, yeah, your path ended up being different than the rest of the Appalachian Trail, but you were still blazing a path, and you're still the wayfinder, right? So that's pretty cool to see that kind of come full circle. And I'm actually glad you mentioned your trail journal as well because I read your trail journal and your trail journal was really cool. Like it had of course I know your whole life. So like I know the sort of Haley spunk, right? And it was there in that trail journal. And that was just really cool to see that kind of dovetail into the journey as well. I'll probably, since we're mentioning it, I'll probably link your trail journal in the liner notes of this episode so that people can click through that because I think it's a great read.
It's only about 10 entries, so it's not a long one either.
Yeah, 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 but it's fun.
Yeah, it definitely has some personality because I looked back at it too.
Yeah, as it should, right?
Mhm.
Absolutely. So where we are in the narrative as we come to this interview, so what the listeners are hearing is just as we enter the 100-mile wilderness, just to kind of ground you on where we are. There's actually a little bit of a scheduling, a potential at play that they could have either just listened to our first night in the wilderness or they might have just listened to the prior night, the 0 day that we took in Baxter State Park. So that's just to ground you. Before we get into any of that, what is your sort of just high level, what did you think about the trail?
I wrote down some words that I think kind of sum it up for me that kind of go back and forth. And those are hard, awesome, emotionally taxing, stunning, strenuous, and thrilling. I think it was a very much an extreme experience for me. There were not a lot of middle emotions. It was either, this is one of the coolest things I've ever done, and then it would very quickly go to, I want to go home immediately, which is a little bit on either end of the spectrum. The highs were highs and the lows were lows. But it was an incredibly cool experience. And I think one of the big things was I proved to myself that I can do hard things. I didn't prove that in the way I imagined it to set out to prove it, which was to hike the whole trail. But I still definitely proved that because that was still a lot of hard things that we did throughout that time.
No doubt. I mean, the part you did was in Maine.
Mhm.
Enough said right there, and the listeners will get a good respect for Maine in general as we go through, because Maine was no joke, especially starting there.
For sure.
Some of the stuff you said there, because you said like you set out to do the whole thing, but I'm going to kind of take us to before the trail a little bit, right? Because did you? Like, and I don't mean to be challenging or whatever, but like I remember you even questioning a lot even before you got on the trail. And I think what I'm trying to do is tee up a question that has you take us through who was it that hit the trail, right? Like what was your life like leading? I mean, we're talking about your last semester of college. Like everybody listening knows this is not a completely tame and timid time for literally anybody. But just take us through that. So you're going through your last semester of college. You're busy as anything because you're graduating, and you're also contemplating this through hike. And I think that in itself naturally had you saying, "Am I? Am I not?" Go with that. Take it from my lead up and just run with it.
Yeah, it was a weird time. I'm also someone who I make a lot of plans, but they're more in the form of big ideas and they're less actual plans sometimes. And then once it actually gets to the moment, I am doing what I'm doing in the moment and I'm not making that plan. So I think that kind of showed up a bunch of ways at the time because it was my last semester. I was enjoying the time I had left with my friends because I was realizing this is my last semester. I'm never going to be here again in this same context. This form of me will never be in this form of Chapel Hill again. And I think there's something beautiful to that. but also as the trail got closer, the time with my friends and the people who I was close with got smaller. And so that time became more and more valuable to me, but also the time until the trail became closer and closer. So there was more pressure associated with it. So it was just a little bit, it was a lot at the same time to kind of think about. And at the same time, at the time I hit the trail, I was kind of grieving in a lot of different ways. And I think, like, emotionally, I was just carrying a lot. Like, I just graduated, so I wasn't only changing environments, but I was saying goodbye to a lot of the people I'd spent day in and day out with for the last 4 years. And suddenly I was going to be in the 100-mile wilderness where it's not like I can send a text when I'm sad to someone that I miss and love you, but being with my dad as the only form of company most of the time was not necessary. It was a huge shift post graduation that made me, when I got to the trail, latch on to some people really quickly. And it was hard for me to realize that the people you meet on the trail, you can call them permanent because they'll always be relationships you have, but they won't be there for your whole trail journey. They weave in and out of your story. So I think that was another thing that was really hard for me to realize when I was actually out there was that I met Fernando and I got really excited when we would see him at camp. I met Dan and Michaela and I was really excited when we would end up camping with them. But when we didn't, I was really sad because I'd met these people that I wanted to do this story with, and then I realized this whole story won't be with those people. I think there's a whole other side of it where going back to that big idea girl, not a huge planner girl, even in terms of graduation planning, I was not on top of it. Everyone else gets excited about their grad pictures, who's taking them, even just talk about how much are you paying for them, what are you going to wear, all those types of things. And I did not have any of that planned. And it was 3 weeks until classes ended. And there was this competition in our capstone class for our major. And the top prize was for a free grad photo shoot from the TA, Cole, who is amazing and awesome. And I miss him, but me and my friends all kind of tied. So we just did it together. So free pictures, that worked out in my favor. Also accidentally drank too much champagne at the shoot and was slightly drunk in front of my TA, which was slightly embarrassing, but was also probably the most fun I ever had taking pictures. And then even just graduation dresses, I ordered a bunch on Amazon last minute to be here before the pictures that we'd scheduled. Didn't like any of them. I'd settled on one that was good enough and hung out with the friends I was taking pictures with all that day. One of them came over and said, "Oh, I have this dress. It would look great on you that I'm not going to wear." I wore that for the pictures. I actually wore that for graduation too. She gave it to me. She said, "As long as you wear it for graduation, you don't have to pay me anything." Free pictures, free dress, awesome people. Everything was working out for me, and I didn't plan any of it. So I think that kind of just carried over into the trail. I was not doing any sort of prep because you had a lot of that covered. And I didn't feel like I was very helpful in that area. You even just told me to read the Trials book by Zach Davis. I don't remember what it's called.
Appalachian
Yes,
Trials.
yes.
Yeah.
And I think I read one chapter and then went back to my fantasy books. And shout out Throne to Glass. Um, but I had remembered reading like How to Hike the Trip by Chris Cage also earlier, and like probably a year before, and something about if you could walk a mile in a certain amount of time, you'd be fine, you'd adapt. And I convinced myself that my 45-minute walk to and from class was my AT prep. So that's pretty much all I was doing because you said the best prep I could have was graduating from college. So I took your word for it. So I think that was probably a little bit of a disservice to me in the long run. And I think if I had done more of that prep, I would have been more invested going in, which is crazy to say because this is such a huge thing. How can you set out to do it and not be invested? But I think that was part of it was my mind was so in college. And then it was such a stark difference. And I didn't give myself that time to prep. Even afterwards, that month that was supposed to be the time to prep, I went to the beach for a week with my friends to say my goodbyes. I spent a week with Marcus to say my goodbyes. I didn't spend that time prepping like I said I was going to. So even in my journal, my first journal entry, I think I wrote, it didn't even feel real until Friday. And I wrote that journal entry on Monday when we were sitting in the bus station. So
Yeah.
that's when I finally got it started, was 3 days before.
So I probably did do you a little bit of a disservice there. Probably do need to, probably do owe you an apology because I remember saying that like your prep is have a best last semester of college, and I probably should have, I don't know, impressed a little bit more of actual prep on you. But I don't know. You happy with how it turned
I
out?
am, and I don't regret spending that time with the people I cared about either. I do think it meant I arrived on the trail emotionally unprepared a little bit for how much I was trying to process all of that transition at once. But think I ended up still doing a great thing and I learned a lot from it. And I think it was as much me as it was more me than it was you, obviously, because I could put more into the prep. But yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, and this leads me. Well, actually, there's a couple of notes that I'll come back to from what you just said, but you've kind of dovetailed straight into a question we had teed up for later on, and I want to ask you, and that is, did you find what you were looking for out on the trail? And if I parse that into two different questions, what were you looking for, and did you find it?
Yeah, so my whole first entry was kind of my why entry. So I have a point where I kind of,
If I could break in, I think that's kind of fun because we actually wrote that on the same day. We were both in the bus station and Bangor writing that. So sorry, go on. I just kind of wanted to throw that in there.
yeah, no, and I think that was good. And I ended up structuring it like yours, like I did for most of these things because of the prep thing we just talked about. But where I had bullet points of, or like numbered list of the things that I was really looking for and my why. And I can kind of just read that first for what was I looking for, or just a overview. But number one was build my confidence, prove to myself that I can do anything that I put my mind to. Number two is figure out what's important to me when all the activities and all the schedules disappear. The next was to find my truest self and find the parts of myself that don't get to thrive in my everyday life. And then to figure out where I'm at with God and where I want to be. To find out what my body can do when it's at its best. To show everyone that dreaming big is never a liability or naive or silly. It's what drives us to be our best and create change in our lives and in the world. Even if the things we are dreaming of are hard or we don't know what to expect, they are never impossible. To fully experience the wonder of the natural world and get to live in it simply, to have one goal and to learn to live without the stress of everything else. So those were my whys, kind of in the order that they were important to me in that moment in that first journal entry.
I'm going to jump in on you again there because the audience who heard a while back my list of whys and just heard yours, there is zero doubt that you're my daughter.
There's some similarities there. Yeah. I think, and to answer the other side of the question, like, did I find that? I think I did find pieces of all of that. Not always necessarily in the ways I expected, and not necessarily in a way that required me to hike all the way to Georgia. But I absolutely proved that I could do something hard, which was the number one thing on my list, which is a little bit silly because I could probably list off a bunch of awesome things I've accomplished and really cool things that I've done, but it was different to me.
Yeah, it's different.
Maybe
Yeah.
even just in a way of it was a almost a physical accomplishment in a way, a mental toughness and a physical toughness. And I had done pieces of those things, but not to this degree. And I still got both of those things throughout the 100-mile wilderness. Not on as long term of a scale, but you saw my ups and downs throughout that. And I mean, I grew, I think, hugely. And leaving that, even hiking the rest of the 100 after Katahdin, like I had a hard time, but it was, wow, I want to do more cool things like that mountain we just climbed. And I think that's part of what pushed me forward. And that's something I left the trail with. I figured out that when everything else disappeared, what mattered most to me wasn't necessarily staying on the trail. It was people, purpose, and building a life that felt like mine, and still chasing hard things in ways that fit who I was becoming. So I found what I was looking for, but it was bits and pieces of it along the way. And they're things that I continued searching for after I left. It wasn't something that ended whenever I left the trail. It was something that I told myself I need to keep making sure I'm looking for these things because this is still important to me in the life I want to build. Because eventually that life isn't going to be on the trail forever anyway. They need to come back to the real world.
Muse here. Just a quick note to ask you for a favor. If you are enjoying what you're hearing, please tell a friend. I'd love to get this story out to as many people as possible. Hopefully it finds just the right set of ears and inspires someone to get out and hit the trail. Of course, if you do see something that could be improved, please let me know. Thank you for walking with me, and happy trails. Hey everyone. This is the part of the episode between the entry and the commentary, where as the podcast develops, I'll drop in an ad or two to get the bills paid. Nothing too intrusive, hopefully, and maybe if we're lucky, we'll pick up some trail-related sponsors. At this point, though, I thought I'd write an ad of my own and read it out. What I'm selling today is simply a plea to get in touch with me. I'll say it in the body of some of the episodes, but probably sometimes I won't. But I really do want to connect. Not only would I love feedback, truly, and am itching to field a question or two, but I also would love to hear your trail stories. This podcast is my way, post-trail, of connecting back with the AT community. Whether you're reliving past glory like I am on this show, prepping for an upcoming hike, or maybe you're on the trail here in 2026, or maybe you're just someone who likes hiking content, or in particular the Appalachian Trail, whatever brings you here, I'd love to get to know you. So reach out on Instagram by following Muse Hikes, or email me at museatpodcast@gmail.com. Or another cool way to get in touch, and I'll start getting back to checking this regularly, is to drop a note in my trail journal if you click through to that. The trail journal has pictures with each journal entry, and sometimes I'll refer directly to the picture in the entry as I read it out, so you might want to see that. And I'll also share some photos on that Instagram account as well. There are links to the Instagram profile, the email, and the trail journal in the show notes to each episode. Whichever way you decide to reach out, I'm looking forward to hearing from you. And now, back to the show.
And you mentioned Katahdin. I want to come back to Katahdin in just a minute, but I don't want to leave completely something you said a little bit earlier, which is you mentioned Fernando and you mentioned Dan and Michaela, and you mentioned how you were excited to see them. And I just want to drill in on, and maybe you've already said it, and if you have, just say you've already said it, but I just want to drill in on one fact that I thought about as you were saying that. They were very present, like an every night occurrence, at least either Fernando or Dan and Michaela, if not both, for half of the 100-mile wilderness. And we got to food drop and basically never saw any of the three of them again. What impact did that have on you?
I think right after food drop was really hard because obviously we just added 10 pounds to our backs after getting used to not having that.
Yeah.
But it was also some of the coolest parts of the 100 for me after realizing, oh, shoot, maybe the reason I'm struggling so much is because of the extra 10 pounds on my back. But then after that, I think we were both worn out, physically and emotionally. I think
no doubt.
It didn't help that we weren't around any of the people that we had been doing the rest of it with. And I think that hurt us, but it was okay. It was something that was sad. Like I was talking about that earlier. It was one of the harder parts for me. Even just leaving the AT hostel, the people that we met there, realizing we weren't going to see them. Like Trip, Squatch, Won't Get Up Will. I forget her name and I feel so, but the other one who helped us in the training.
The one person whose name I forget as well.
Was it Bubbles?
It was Bubbles. Okay. Good job.
And then of course Trash Panda and Loins, but like everyone, just genuinely cool, genuine people. And it was one of the harder parts for me leaving those people behind right when I started to feel like I was connecting with them.
Did you know that I ran into Won't Get Up Will again?
I did not know that.
Yeah, hostel in Maine in Carabasset Valley. So I actually did see her again.
Cool. Yeah.
But not again after that. So, but anyway, that's part of the cool parts about the trail, right? It's running back into people.
Yeah, and I remember us, like another part of that was like we kind of thought we'd see Trip again because he was ridge running in the 100, and then we never did.
I was certain I would.
And I was like really genuinely sad when that didn't happen because I don't know, I'd kind of like pictured that as what was gonna happen, and that's part of the thing on the trail. Like you can't picture it. You can't picture any of it. It happens when it happens, and I think that's part of the beauty, but it also makes it harder sometimes because you don't necessarily know what's ahead of you all the time.
Sure, absolutely. Well, let's go ahead and talk about Katahdin. Well, first of all, you and me both on Trip, Like, I thought for sure we were going to run it. I didn't know what a ridge runner was, so I thought for sure we were going to run into him. And yeah, I was disappointed not to. So Katahdin, my memory is that was an awesome day. It was a lot of fun. At the end of it, when it comes down to it, though, we did not reach the summit. Take us a little bit through how that made you feel. The listeners at this point will have heard that I was, on one level, I was good with it right up front, right? But then there was another level on which I had to kind of get good with it, right? Mm-hmm. Did you kind of have that a similar journey with that? Or, I don't know, just then and later, how did you feel about that fact that we did not get to the summit?
Yeah, I think, first of all, I think that was one of the days where I was the most me on trail, was even just that first day. It was a lot of fun. It was beautiful. It was our first taste of hiking up there in Maine.
It was so awesome.
And there was also so much, like the whole trail itself was even different as you got up further, and it was just amazing overall. It was genuinely one of the most terrifying and one of the most awesome things I've ever done all at the same time. And it felt like we were...
Just so you know, and I will let you finish, but just so you know, it never got more so after that. Like it really, when they were telling us at the AT hostel that like everything's easier after Katahdin, I don't know. There were other moments, of course, across a 2,200-mile trail, but I mean, it really...
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah, it was the highlight right there at the beginning, right?
Yeah, like it genuinely felt like we were scaling the side of a mountain sometimes, and I remember thinking I could fall and hit where we started that morning, but it was incredible. And there were so many moments that day where I just felt like I was so small in this huge, amazing world, and not in a bad way, in a way of, wow, I'm here. Like I get to be here. And even just when we decided to turn around, I definitely had a moment. I think I cried. I think that was there. Like I wanted the picture with the sign, and I knew the picture wasn't the important part, but it was the moment that it symbolized, and it kind of symbolized success. And we didn't have that picture. And that was something that even after I was like, we don't have that picture. And like, it made total sense that we turned around. There were like thunderstorms predicted. We made the safe decision. We didn't want to take our chances above the tree line. I was sad, and it definitely affected me for a day or two. I mean, we took that zero the next day in Katahdin Stream Campground, and I think we stayed there as long as we did, partially because of my mood because of that. But also, Katahdin is
I think that's fair. There's nothing wrong with that, and I'm glad you're just saying.
Yeah, I mean, also, it is genuinely, like, that mountain's a beast. And a few days later, it did click how cool what we did actually was. Even just turning around and looking back on top of that mountain and being like, whoa, and being able to see the point where we were was really cool. And honestly, we had done a lot of the hardest parts of that hike. We just didn't have the time, but
yeah, true.
I don't think I understood that it was a beast until we were actually doing it. But like that rebar section was freaky. Pulling myself up there was terrifying, but then even like that was another moment. Turning around was like, okay, that was worth it. Like once we got up there, like, wow, look at that. Now, looking back, I don't really remember the failure feeling as much. I don't remember feeling that, but I remember the awe. I do remember being terrified, but I remember being stunned, and I remember now being proud. Yeah. I still say we climbed it. We didn't summit, but we climbed it, and it was unforgettable. If I ever went back...
Oh, 100%. I say it the same way, right? Like, we climbed Katahdin on June 5th of 2025, and yeah, it was an awesome experience.
Yeah, it was amazing. I do think if I ever went back to the trail in any capacity, I would want Katahdin to be last. What an epic finish. And then you also have more stamina to make it to the top, but just a bonus.
Yeah. So you spent 3 weeks on the trail with me, and it turned you into a Nobo.
Maybe. Yeah.
All right, 100-mile wilderness. Highlights, lowlights. I feel like you probably have already said some of that, And that's fine. That's the way these conversations are supposed to go. But just fill in anything you haven't already mentioned. Like what did you think of the 100?
I think there were a lot of ups and downs. I think our first full day
Pun
actually in the
intended.
100, I was true. I was actually like convinced I wanted to go home. I was in tears on top of our first top-ish, and never in my life had I ever been homesick before. But I was homesick out there, and that's not necessarily the place where you want to first feel that feeling because there's nothing to distract you. There's not really any way to be distracted out there, especially at the beginning when your whole body is in constant, like you're majorly adjusting. And I'm sure there's an element of like you feel your body being sore the entire time you're out there, but especially at the beginning, there were some thoughts that carried me through. And you'll see this if you do decide to check out the trail journals is like the little lines on top. That was my main thought of the day. That was what kind of like moved me forward. But one of them was everything is temporary. It was one of the ideas that like on the one hand, when I was struggling, it reminded me that the struggle wouldn't last forever. But also it reminded me that I would never be this exact person in this exact moment again. So I need to drink it all in. So it was kind of I could use that on either ends. So I definitely kept going back to that everything is temporary thought. I think I mentioned the food drop, but like Whitecap and Chairback, those were it was kind of like a second wind for me in a way because I finally got the Haley back in me.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
Whitecap was really exciting. That's where we met Chia, right?
yes.
And he got his
Yes.
first view of Katahdin. Of course, he was a Nobo.
Mm-hmm.
He'd gone 2,200 miles at that point to see it, and just the
Yeah.
excitement of that meeting carried me for 2 days. And I remember back that it did you too.
Yeah, because it was like, yes, his excitement was so cool, but also realizing like we also came that far, the opposite direction, and not as far as him. But like we could see where we came from too.
Yeah,
Like, wow, we just did that. Like he did, whoa, huge accomplishment. He seemed like an awesome guy, but I even just needed wow, look what I've done to continue to push me forward also. I think chairback I thought was really cool because there was that like last tenth of a mile that was like a rock scramble, and I was like, oh, this has personality. Even though it was like the sun was going down and we were rushing to try to get to the shelter, it was cool being up there also when the sun was like going down.
yeah.
And I think that was really neat. And it was a different experience than a lot of the other ones we had in the 100. Overall, I liked a lot of the water crossings a lot. Like, if you didn't catch on by the rain comment earlier, I'm a little bit of a water girl. I like the water parts. I liked the water parts of it, and I wish I had kind of soaked, no pun intended, soaked that part in more. But I like the water crossings. I thought all the different lakes were really cool. As long as you're in a good mood, a water crossing is fine, unless you find it more annoying. Um, but one of the biggest parts of the 100 was I remember whenever you twisted your knee, like right near the end, and we were already running really thin,
Yeah.
physically and emotionally. And I was already slower on the uphills. You were already slower on the downhills. And we were both really annoyed with each other, even though we were both trying to do our best.
Well, one of the things, if I could break in there, one of the things I wish I came to the realization of earlier was that we didn't have to hike together all the time. Like that
Yeah.
first day that I was like, see you at the shelter, that was great. And I wish I
Yeah.
had done that 3 days earlier.
Yeah, no, that was good. That was a good day. I think it was hard for us to separate after like recent news of the time, which was sad. We didn't want to separate considering, but also we were both kind of still finding our footing out there, so it was hard for us to want to do that so early on. I do think it would have happened more if I was out there longer.
Yeah.
But there were a couple days, not that day where I purposefully hiked super far behind you because I was really mad at you, but that was completely different. And you kept stopping to try to let me catch up, and I would just stand there and stop because I was stubborn.
I have a tendency to be clueless
But
sometimes. I probably had no idea you were mad at me.
maybe. Yeah. Those were my general, I don't know. I mean, those are most of my impressions on the wilderness. It was amazing. I actually really liked, I know they're hazards, but I liked the rocks and roots and like those puzzle moments, which was part of the whole like Wayfinder thing. I think it was fun trying to puzzle out like what is the best way for me to get down? Which rocks are the stable? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which way should I be stepping on this certain thing? It was like a way to kind of use my brain in those moments where I felt like my brain wasn't being used.
And you were legitimately good at it. Like I would have to stop and figure out which way should I go. You wouldn't. You wouldn't even miss a stride. You just keep going. And that would be when I would fall behind you. There would be the times you would fall behind me, but that would be what, we'd hit those obstacles and you just skip right over them like it was nothing, and I'd fall behind you.
Yeah. No, that's true because also a lot of that was on the downhill, which made it harder because of the knee thing too. So, yeah. Yeah, true.
All right. Real quick, because I do want to get on to sort of other things as well. But you left the trail in Munson, but your trail story didn't really end in Munson, right? And I do want to get on to that, but one of the things I forgot to even write in our notes before the episode, what about the town of Munson? What did you think?
I think the town of Munson, and I realized that you didn't write that in the notes, which was interesting, but it was honestly some of my best moments on trail. I think personally, it felt like a lot of the ways that, like, even just, I remember the chocolate milk runs, the calzones that we had at that gas station. Meeting Hoot was a huge thing for me.
Yeah.
I don't know why that made such an impression on me, but it did.
Because that guy was
Watching the Breakfast Club
hilarious.
for the first time. He was hilarious, but also it was like, I don't know, it picked up something in me, like emotionally. I was doing better because of it. But I think a lot of that was also a lot of the reason why I loved those moments so much were it was one of the first times on trail where it felt like they were mine. And I loved sharing the trail with you, but I needed parts of the story that felt like my own.
Of course.
And I think Munson was a lot of that where we weren't together all the time. We did a lot of that stuff together, but then also like there would be times where I was in there hanging out with Hoot and like some other people watching a movie and you were like off doing something else. And we did kind of have our own moments at times. And I think that was part of what I needed. And I honestly don't know what it would have looked like if I had continued, because I think we both needed very different things from the experience as a whole.
Hey everyone, Muse here with a quick update before we get back to the trail. I just got the numbers for our very first week and I am super excited. 114 downloads in our first 7 days. Just seeing that number was very exciting. It represents that a number of my closest family and friends are really engaging with my Appalachian Trail story, and that is astounding and also humbling. I did a little research to get the proper perspective on that and found that that first week performance is top 25% for all podcasts globally. I'm completely blown away. This ad spot first airs as I'm just hitting the festival grounds for my first trail days in Damascus, Virginia. If you hear this and see me at trail days, please let me know. I want to thank you in person. To everyone that I now get to call my audience, a sincere thank you. I am truly grateful that you chose to join me on this journey. Now, back into the woods.
Drilling into the Munson time, I felt like you had a nice connection specifically with Poet.
I did.
Do you want to talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, I think Poe was just really awesome as a whole. I think consensus. Well, everyone would say that about everyone for the most part. But I think he really helped me in a lot of the ways I was struggling. He also had some really fun stories, and I'm a sucker for a good story. But the whole time we were in Munson, I was back and forth on whether or not I was going to continue. And the conversation with Poet, couple conversations with Poet, the first one I had was really like, I think he realized I was off or something, and we started talking about it, and I kind of like glazed over it. And he was like, hey, like, if you want to talk about this more, like, I am here. And then I ended up going and talking to him more about it later and really talking about it. And there was kind of you won't know if you don't try, but also do what you need to do. Like, and that was part of the thing I was struggling with a lot was I had told a ton of people in my life, personally and professionally, that I was going and doing this. This was not something I wanted to just give up on, because I hadn't fully thought it out. So it was something that it was a decision I was really struggling with. And something that did come up a couple times, like multiple times during the 100 itself and in Munson. And I think he was really helpful to just kind of take a step back and look at it big picture. And I really appreciated that from an outside perspective from someone who wasn't my dad, which
Fair.
was helpful to hear like your comments also, but I also knew you were personally invested. Like you didn't want me to leave. I mean, at the end maybe you did because I was annoying you so much. But mom didn't want me to leave. Everyone I talked to was like personally had a reason why I should not leave. And it was nice to talk to someone on the outside who had been in the community for a while, like a long time, and knew the things that you got out of this experience. And from that, I ended up saying I'm going to go to Caratunk. And then we covered that kind of earlier, but I ended up coming back once we hit the other side of Munson and walking those roads back to the hostel and getting a flight the next day, the day after that, I don't remember. But it was helpful for me to talk that out, even looking back, deciding not to continue because like he helped give me the perspective of it's okay if you don't continue this. And also it is something that you can come back to. Like it's not like the trail is going to disappear, but it was especially hard for me having told everyone I was doing this. And that was something he helped me
Sure.
handle as well.
Well, I was so grateful for Poet, kind of in general. I mean, I think, like you said, he's a guy everybody's going to say is an awesome guy anyway, because he just is. He's helping everybody out there, but especially for how he was so sensitive and helpful to you. I can't even, like, I couldn't count how many times I thanked the guy, but it wasn't enough. Right? I mean, he's that good of a guy. All right. So the continuation from there. You go home, but it's not like the story was over. I was still on trail. You were still pulling for me. I saw you. I'm counting on my fingers for people who obviously, well, nobody sees the video because it's just audio only. But what, 4 more times? Yeah, 4 more times before I left trail. So your Appalachian Trail story did not end at Munson. Tell me about where it went from there. What was your connection to the trail? How did you feel that while I was still hiking?
Yeah, I do think it was really interesting. I didn't go see you that first time in Maine still because I had just flown back, and that did not make sense to anybody for me to fly right back up to Maine. And that was what mom was pushing for me to stay until so that we could just make a clean exit from there. But that is not what ended up happening. But I was there the rest of the times, I think.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting because I felt like I was on both sides of the experience. I had been on trail, so I understood it in a way that the other people in our family didn't necessarily understand parts of it.
I remember that. I remember me relating certain things, and it's like, Haley gets it. The rest of you don't.
Yeah.
It's still fun for me to tell you, but I can see Haley gets it, right?
Yeah. But I also like wasn't hiking, so sometimes I felt like an imposter on both sides because I wasn't fully a hiker on the trail, but I also wasn't fully just a visitor. So it was really interesting, but it was really cool to see you in your element, and I loved meeting your trail friends because I really did miss the people part of the trail. That's probably the part I regret missing out on the most. But yeah, just those friendships and the way that the trail forms them, I think is really cool. And I think I kind of touched on this earlier, but I think your trail experience became exactly what you needed. And I really don't think I think what I would have needed would have been different. So I don't totally know what it would have looked like if I stayed. And I think we would have been better off hiking separately in the end. I think part of it together, part of it separately, and then like meeting, like back up here and there. But like, I also don't know how that would have went over with mom. So
Well, and you know, obviously mom's a very important element of the conversation, but just in general, how comfortable would anybody involved,
Yeah.
you and me included, have been, right? Might have depended who you met up with or whatever. Yeah, I don't really know. I haven't actually thought about much how that would have ended up looking. From my standpoint, I'm going to say I am grateful for my hike for what it was.
Mhm.
Had you remained on trail, that was something I was always looking forward to too. So I'm sure I'd still be sitting here today saying those same words.
But it would have been a completely different experience. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. All right. So you took a different path. What is the path that you took?
I ended up at the hostel in Munson thinking about leaving, and the thought of it spurred me to look up the job that I was looking at for after the trail, possibly, and thinking about and seeing if they had any open placements still for the upcoming year. And they did. They had three, I want to say, and one of them was about 20 minutes from home, which would have been perfect. And I ended up applying right there in the hostel, even before I knew for sure that I was leaving the trail. But at that point, I thought I was still going to go to Caratunk at least. But I was like, there's no hurt in applying. So I did end up leaving, and I did end up interviewing the next week, getting the job the week after that. And I ended up in training in Chapel Hill for the whole month of July. So it was a little bit of a whirlwind.
So what's the job?
Oh, I now still currently am a next step advisor or college advisor for seniors in high school in a couple high schools in Surrey County, North Carolina. I love it. Basically helping them plan for any post-graduation plans. Most of that is college application related, college next steps, but some of that is job applications. Some of that is military next steps, connecting them with recruiters, that sort of thing. So there are some different things, but it has been an amazing experience. We're in the graduation season now, so exciting, wrapping everything up, busy period, but exciting, bittersweet. I am ending this year and starting grad school in the fall. But that's kind of where I've been since the trail. My journey, I guess Springer was December, so my journey there was a little different. I was an advisor at the time working in a high school, but yeah.
Very cool. So now Springer. So let me go ahead and tee this up because I want to tell you right here in front of everybody who's listening how special that was to me, that it was special to you, right? So you were communicating, and I guess I was in Tennessee when we first kind of started talking about it, and you were communicating that you absolutely wanted to be there on my last day, kind of no matter what, right? Like that was very important for you to take the last steps on the trail with me. And I just want to, I'm going to let you talk about that in a moment, but I just wanted to first say to you how that was just awesome for me, that was the way you felt.
Yeah, I did really want to be there. I was excited to celebrate your accomplishment, and I wanted to be there when that happened. And I think that was something that I really valued, and I'm glad that I could be there for. And I think it was also, I don't know, it was a little bit helpful for you at the top to have me and Evan both there. I think it was special for you to not just have me, but also have Evan there.
Well, especially after I couldn't breathe, right?
I was really just thinking of helping you like take pictures and, not have to worry about all the logistics. But, yeah, that was helpful too. It was, yeah, I mean, it was awesome. I think it was kind of that same, like, it's kind of weird. Just like visiting you of like, all your friends are here. I've met some of them before. I met some of them in Maine. I met some of them in New York. So like I had met these friends like at different points I hadn't met some of them before. So there was a whole combination, but it was a little bit emotionally complicated for me. Like I was happy to be there. I was happy to walk those last steps with you, but it kind of felt like I should have been there the whole time and I had failed somehow at the same time. But I was...
Oh, okay. I didn't even think about that dynamic, and I'm sorry that you felt that. It didn't even occur to me that might be what you'd say.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't showing that as much as possible. Obviously, that was good that you didn't catch on, but because it wasn't
I had a lot going
moment,
on that day.
True. But yeah, it wasn't my moment, and I wasn't going to take that away from you.
Yeah.
But there was a little bit of that feeling underneath there. And I think part of that was I don't think I fully gave my own trail story enough credit when I came back. Some people asked about it, but not as many as I kind of thought would. I also probably avoided talking about it because I kind of framed it as quitting before anybody else really could. So I think It was
If
strange.
we can reframe that right here and now, you hiked 120 miles up and down Katahdin and through the 100-mile wilderness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there is no reason to frame that negatively.
Yeah, but as soon as I got off the trail, it's a little bit of emotions are running high. I realize that
Sure.
now. I even realized that probably like a week later or a month later, but people are going to ask right when you get back. It's not going to stay on their minds. But like and this is something you probably also didn't process, but even at Christmas, I loved seeing people ask you questions when we went to St. Louis and watch you talk so excitedly about your adventure. But that was also the first time I saw everybody since my part of the adventure, and no one asked me about it. And I think, and that
Yeah.
wasn't something like I was incredibly happy for you, but I didn't get to talk about my fun parts of it. I just talked about my job, which they asked me. I got the questions about my job. You got the questions about the trail, and which makes sense in a way, but also there's a whole part of my story that like I felt like I couldn't really share there because I didn't want to take away from your experience or make your story feel smaller, which was interesting.
You could have jumped in, but I understand why you didn't, and even appreciate that that's the way you feel. They're all listening now.
They are all listening now. Yeah, it was interesting. Another part of it was I kind of wanted a picture of us together at the top, not as a part of your story, but like as something full circle for mine too. But I didn't want to ask or get in the way. And then once you were hurt, I obviously it wasn't the priority. And the priority was making
That
sure you were
was
okay.
actually on my mind too, and I realized that that didn't happen, and I'm going to tell you right here and now that is only because I got hurt. That didn't happen.
Which makes sense. Yeah. I do think it was a really special experience, and I'm glad I was there. But it was kind of a weird in between place, and in a couple
Yeah.
ways. And it did feel more isolating than I expected as well. Not fully outside the story, but not fully inside it either. Was just kind of an odd place to be. But I was really happy for
Yeah.
you at the same time.
Well, I appreciate that. So, I know I wrote it in there. I'm hesitating to even ask, but do you have a funny trail story? And as I put in our notes, if you have to embarrass the host, that is fair game.
I don't know if I have anything incredibly embarrassing. I remember something that I found a little funny. I wasn't on trail that long, so I don't have that many funny stories. But something I found a little bit funny was whenever we came out of Baxter State Park, and we were at the store right there,
Yeah.
and we were in there getting stuff for lunch, basically. And we didn't get to have the sandwiches because they weren't selling them yet. It
We
was
were
too
looking
early.
forward to those subs
I
all
know,
day.
we really
Yeah.
were. And first of all, I guess also connected to that, we walked out and the ranger came up to us and said mom had been calling about us and all that, which was well, it wasn't even mom. They just asked us our names. And we were like, what's going on? That was interesting, but not necessarily a funny story. The funny part was, for those of you who don't know me super well, for part of college, a good part, 2 years maybe, I was planning on teaching high school math, and I was studying math, and I was also in the School of Ed. So I had eventually turned away from that after getting a D on my linear algebra exam. That wasn't actually the reason, but I decided it wasn't where I wanted to be, and I pivoted to something else. And it was really kind of funny because it kind of came full circle in that moment because whenever we were checking out with all our lunch stuff, there was the mom trying to help her son with the probability, I think, at the behind the
Oh,
cash
yeah.
register. And they were really struggling with this one problem. And I was just like, "Oh, they got it. They'll figure it out." But dad, he turns to me and he goes, "Oh, well, she can probably help you. She's really good at teaching these sorts of things. She knows her math." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I'm standing there, we're checking out, and I'm explaining the probability problem. And honestly, it did help. She understood what I was saying and then passed it along, and hopefully he aced his probability test. But it was kind of an interesting, funny, full circle moment that I just didn't expect to run into in the middle of a hike. Yeah, it's kind of funny. There were a couple other like random thoughts I had that I thought were kind of funny. Like One day while I was hiking, I just thought about that statistic where there's like you pass by 7 murderers in your lifetime, like they walk past you. And I was like, I wrote this in one of my trail journals, but like, what if that's what it's like with bears out here? Like, we don't even know the amount we're walking past. I don't know if the number's actually 7, but yeah, what if there's so many we don't see that we walk past? So that was just a random thought I had, and I compared it to the murderer statistic. And then I think I started trying to make a song out of the Hollaback Girl parody with the rocks and roots. Rocks and roots, rocks and roots. Yeah, so I was kind of going crazy with that one day in my head. I don't think I said any of these things out loud, but they were funny thoughts to me. So, random little funny things.
All right. Excellent. Next episode, and of course, as you heard in the beginning, I'm not absolutely sure at this point what last episode was.
So I don't know precisely what next episode will be, but I do know one thing for certain. It will be in the 100-mile wilderness. So tune in to hear a little bit more about the 100 and Haley's and my adventures there. Until then, this has been Muse and Wayfinder. You have been listening to Muse's AT Podcast. Thank you for walking with me, and happy trails.